appreciate that.
Okay.
That's what a good vice chair does.
Thank
That's awesome.
So Gary, are you fishing or is that just a picture of the lake?
I've gone fishing on Lake Loch Lomond, as you can see.
Well, I'm looking through the picture of smiling faces, and those who are not on video have their names up on the board here. So I'm seeing that attendance is looking good here. I can't see anybody that is not here. Is Jackie on?
No.
Jackie Gain? That might be the only person I don't see here. But other than that, we're look pretty all present and accounted for. So we just ticked past the 1600 hour or 4 p.m. So we can get this thing rolling. Sound good?
Sure.
Good.
All right then. So the agenda was sent out earlier, and what we have on that is a pretty short schedule for today. I'm just going to pull it up here to refresh my memory. And we have so what we have basically is introduction of guests. I don't see any guests on the video. Does anybody have any guests with them hiding? So I guess we're good there. We don't have any guests. So we'll go on to the amenity reports. And then after amenity reports, we just have the meet and greet, the welcome meet and greet from Deb. And then a note on 2021 budgets process and discussion from Joan. And with that, we can get started. So let's take it over to Debbie Sorensen.
Chris, I just got a message from Jackie Gaines that she's getting invalid meeting ID.
Okay.
She's using 987-6136-2191.
Okay. Tammy, would you be able to help us out with that? Maybe resend the email invitation to Jackie?
I sent it out to everybody. That is the wrong one. She needs to go to the one that I sent, and I just sent it a few minutes ago, if you would tell her.
Okay, I'll tell her that.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So we could pause for a couple seconds here to let her try to get in. She's third up on the list, but we'll wait just a moment and circle back to her if we have to.
She's coming in now.
Okay, great. Ah, there she is. She appeared. The connection is connecting. The electrons are flying. They're trying.
There's Jackie.
All right. I still show connecting. What do you see?
I see Jackie. I see Jay Gagan.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's assume she made it then and move on. We were going to get started with the amenity reports. Jackie, glad you made it. And we're going to hit, as usual, Branchwood as the first amenity report. So take it away, Debbie.
The trail is in great shape. I've walked it a couple times this last week. It's been very busy, a lot of people walking. There are a couple dead trees along one of the holes, and I sent that to, God help me, the gal that worked the Branchwood, help me, Jessica. I sent the picture to Jessica and with the number and stuff. affect, the dead trees will not affect the trail at all, but there are a couple new dead trees. Areas of review, there have been quite a few disc golfers. I was there this last weekend and there were a lot on Sunday morning and on Saturday afternoon. I know that the tennis courts are going to go away and there are going to be pickleball courts there. I don't know what the reaction has been with the tennis players, but that was I think the decision this last meeting, Joan, from the POA. The equipment, I understand that the hot tubs will not be open. I believe they hopefully will open someday at Reardon. But because the hot tub, if any of you have been at Branchwood, it's very small. So that is not going to be open. But I do believe there may be some classes starting, swim classes, exercise classes, but not floor classes that will be starting hopefully in the near future. And that's it.
All right, that sounds real good. Thank you for that, Debbie. I think Jackie asked for a little bit of discussion about the pickleball courts, and probably the best time would be when Joan's reviewing the budgets during that segment. So let's move on to Tyree Park then from Denise.
Yeah, hi there. I made 2 visits out to Tyree Park. The first was on the 19th of August, and it was in good condition. I wouldn't say it was great. It was clean. The grass was mowed, but it was messier. The bathrooms were kind of messy. The women's toilet paper dispenser was open and the toilet paper was all awry. There were 2 people that were there that were sitting in the grass out by the lake. And I did chat with them. They were from the plaza and they come out every week to a different park and they sit socially distanced and they have a little get together just to get outside. And they said that Tyree Park is their absolute favorite place. So they're there fairly often. There wasn't anything that they could suggest that needed to be improved. They did mention the trash cans, which are completely rusted out on the bottom and the handles are gone. So if we can get a couple new trash cans out there, that would really be nice. Parking lot was good. Playground area was fine. I went out there again. Back on that day, there was a gentleman, one of the guys that I was there on the 19th was in kind of a handicap, kind of a walker, like you sit on the walker and move yourself. And he was way out there in the yard. So obviously there's not a problem with people that are potentially handicapped getting access to the facility. I went out there again the day after the holiday. I went out there on September 8th at 1:00 to see if it was really in good shape or not. And it was in surprisingly good shape. Nobody was using the pavilion, but there were a lot of trucks with trailers that people had put their boats in. And the only question I really have is there is a porta potty there. Is there a reason why we would have a porta potty when we have the restrooms that are open? And they're fairly close together. I was actually thinking that if you took the porta potty and moved it down by the dock, that would be more convenient for anybody who's putting their boat in, because right now the porta potty is right next to the bathrooms for the most part. So that would be the only comment that I would make, is to move that porta potty down there. Or if you don't want the porta potty at all, then I would just remove it completely. That was it.
So you've got a lot of eyes on that. Often sounds great, good reporting. Is there any response to any of that information, Rick?
So that bathroom gets winterized, and we could have had that porta potty removed, and then we would just bring it back again in October when we winterize.
Okay.
So we just left them this year, and not knowing, for sure whether we're gonna have a spike in cases and have to close things down again. So.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. I just was wondering.
Okay, good deal. All right, Jackie, you made it. So it's your turn to tell us about the RV storage and Lake Ann.
I'm sorry, I had the wrong meeting ID invite, I think.
IT
At the last
issues, you
minute, I
know.
checked email. That was a good thing to do.
We're good. We're good.
So, on the RV park, I did get out there this month, and I actually called the POA membership group to ask about personally renting a space there, and they're full, and the space that I need has a waiting list quite long. So that's a good sign that, you know, it's definitely being used. And so I priced personally some slots throughout the city, and our POA area is the cheapest, which I can understand now why it's full, because it's a really good price. So anyway, I did drive out there, and I asked if there's anything he wanted me to look at particularly, and not really, just kind of drive through and casually look for stickers, and they're on the boards and stuff, but the rangers do all that. So drove through there, and there were a few people loading up and unloading their trailers, and it looked to be in good shape, but it's very well utilized.
Mm-hmm.
On Lake Ann, I would just say that Rick and Joan are number one in the number two department. We had a porta potty out there that I think got bypassed by the city, and Joan did some CSI investigation and found out what the deal was with that, and it is now being serviced and supplied. So the other two that Rick was aware of are always clean and always supplied. So now the one by the trailhead also looks much better. So I appreciate y'all's efforts on that to get that back functioning and cleaned up. Otherwise, no issues report. Labor Day out here was, for Lake Ann, was busy, but that's not busy compared to, I'm sure, the other parks out there. But we had lots of usage out here, and everything is looking really good.
Fantastic. Good news. Thank you for that.
Hey, Jackie, just real quick on a personal note regarding your RV. You may not know this, and maybe some of the other folks on the JAC may not know, but from November until March, we do long-term storage, what we call long-term storage at Blowing Springs. And basically for $100 a month plus tax, you can leave your RV in one of our campsites. It's not so you can stay, it's in case you need storage. What we found is we do have a number of members who travel during the better months and need a shorter term place to leave their RV. That may not serve your needs, but again, we slow down November through March, we can accommodate you. And you can pay
Okay.
1 month at a time. You can stay multiple months, whatever you like, but just a FYI.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll pass that along. That's good to know.
How
And then
much
I did have, I bike rode with several people this morning, but can't remember his first name. Champagne. Shoot, can't remember his first name now. But he wanted to know when yoga was starting up. So when you get to your point, I think it's Matt. I think it's Matt. He was saying, talk to Joan and tell her, ask her when we're going to get our yoga. So we biked by a place out there that was doing it outside in Rogers, I think. And he says, we need to get ours started back up. So anyway, that's all.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Jackie. So that brings us to Scott and a report on what's going on at Rton Hall.
Hi, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, because my video's not working, so I want to make sure the microphone was.
Yep.
So, Jackie, I'll hit you on the yoga part. I was talking to Kathy over at Reardon Hall, and she said they were going to start their evening yoga classes back in September. So, haven't gone back there to check to see if they've started yet, but plan to go out there this week. Overall condition at Reardon Hall is good. They've added back some fitness classes, and they've also allowed the line dancing and cardio class to start. Like I hit, the evening yoga will start in September, and so will Zumba. So they've got some small classes starting back up, classes that fit the coronavirus restrictions. They're still unable to hold large events in the main auditorium, mostly because the exercise equipment is still in the main auditorium. They have to meet a 12-foot distancing rule there, so that's why some of the equipment is sitting in the auditorium. The larger clubs and groups, however, have been expressing their displeasure at not being able to start back up and have their events as they see the smaller groups. But Kathy explained that due to the social distancing rules, they just can't accommodate those big, large groups yet. The pool still continues to see good use. When I was out there were quite a few people out there, even though school had already started. They've gone to their no lifeguards during the week now that school has started back. Checked on the playground. The playground looks good. There's a sign that's just blocking the sidewalk that says that people can't go onto the playground. However, there's nothing that really prevents them from using it. They can walk around the sidewalk and still get on it, but I didn't see anybody on it there. Miniature golf courses look good out there, but there are a couple of holes where the carpeting is starting to come up and bubble up. So that probably needs a little bit of attention out there. The rest of the equipment out there, the basketball court, the shuffleboard court looked okay. The pavilion and the bathrooms looked to be in good working order. No broken picnic tables out there. Everything looked good. Kathy had mentioned that she thought that the bathrooms back there were closed, but when I went out there and checked, they were open. Not for sure if they were supposed to be closed or if they're supposed to be open, but they were open when I checked on it. Tennis court is in good shape. Talked to the tennis pro out there. He didn't have anything to report or anything for the committee. Did talk to a couple members that I saw back playing on the pickleball court that's behind the tennis courts there. And they said they liked the new resurfacing there. It's better than the old surface that used to be. So they were having fun back there. And a couple times I checked on the tennis courts, they were all full. So they're definitely getting used in the evening time.
All right. So that certainly was a good comprehensive report. Appreciate that, Scott. A lot of good information there.
Scott, just real quick, the sign that you were referencing that is on the sidewalk leading to the playground, the playgrounds are now open.
Okay.
So maybe, and they've only been open since the Friday before Labor Day. So maybe you were referring to an old sign, but you're right, there is a sign there. And it basically says they are open, use at your own risk, and that they'll be infrequently disinfected because we have no way of disinfecting after every use. But they are open, both at Reardon, Medfield, the beach, etc., and Branchwood.
Yeah, I did check before Labor Day. I'll go back out and see what the sign says now, make sure it's correct.
It's there and it's definitely correct. We put it up when we reopen, just letting everybody know. We have one of those signs at every playground.
Yep, I believe I've seen some pent-up playing happening at those playgrounds. All right, so let's move on to Loch Lomond. Scotty Smith, what do you have for us?
So normally I would try to go twice a month, but I broke my foot about 2 weeks ago. So I'm in my bedroom. So our whole family went out there this past Sunday. I was waiting until I was a little bit better on my crutches. So I will say it's not too hard to get around on crutches down there. It's nice that there's a handicap area down there that has a flatter parking. I will also say some of the feedback was from my husband and my kids because I had them go and check some things out. Everything in terms of like the grass was freshly cut. The flag area looks really good. I don't know who keeps that up, but it looks really nice. The flowers just really pretty. The bathrooms were much better this time. Both doors were unlocked and they were clean. There were a lot of people. We were there on Sunday for about 2 hours and we counted 27 people. There were a couple of families. Nobody was wearing masks, but everybody was social distancing, which was nice. The only kind of negatives is I guess there's a storage shed down there by the baseball field. And I told my husband I'm supposed to check everything out. So he tried to open it and he goes, it's open and there's gear in here. So I didn't know who's in charge of that, but he said that there is equipment in there and it wasn't locked. I don't know. It has like a latch to have a padlock, but didn't have a padlock on it. And then it has a keyed lock, but it wasn't locked. He said there was stuff in there, so nobody's stolen it, but that always makes me nervous. And then the other thing is right next to the shed. And again, this is because my kids wanted to play on it. There's a giant piece of scrap metal that I think used to be part of maybe the roof. It's got bent and curled corners. And of course, my kids wanted to jump on it. And I was like, that's going to slice your skin right off. So I didn't know, it's like a big piece of rebar and a big piece of sheet metal. And I didn't know if somebody had plans to move that. It's just something to be aware of, because again, people take their kids like I do. My kids, it was the first thing my kids wanted to do was jump all over it and play on it. There's also, there are a couple active hornet nests. There's 2 in the gazebo, and they still actually had the hornets in there last time they were there, but I didn't see any bugs, so I thought maybe they were old, but they're still there. I don't know if we spray for that or not. To be honest with you, the only people that went in the gazebo the entire 2 hours we were there were me and my kids, so maybe nobody else was in there.
It's the Hornets.
Maybe
it's the Hornets.
Maybe it's the Hornets. I don't know. We did talk to, I talked to 2 different people. Again, we were keeping our social distance. They were both by themselves, kind of older walkers. One was just walking the area, and he just said he loves to walk there. And we're talking about how pretty it was. And then another one was a woman just walking her dog, and she just said she loves to be there with her dog. And it was great to see kids out there. She said that they don't see very many kids out there when she walks. Trying to think. The only other question I had was, should I call somebody when there's equipment like that sitting out? Should I not call somebody?
So I'll reach out to, I believe Tom Wooters still kind of looks after that ball field for a group that uses the complex. And we have some ongoing repairs going on down there, which may be why you saw it, the metal in the condition it was in, but it shouldn't have been left like that overnight. We're doing some painting and some repairs on that building. The hornet's nests, we did kill a nest on the trail, and we were unaware of the 2 in the gazebo, so we'll take care of those.
One's like right up high in the, I don't want to call it a turret, but whatever you call the top there.
Right.
And then one's kind of on the lip on the side. There was also like a water meter thing that was up and open. Again, my kids went over to play with it, and my husband just picked it up, put it back in the ground. That was over by the 3 cones. So I could tell they were doing something, but it looks like somebody was doing something and then maybe got like a call somewhere else. And it just,
yeah, could be.
So, should I call somebody when I see something like that, or?
You can call for that particular location. You can call me at my office.
And which office is that?
Lakes and Parks.
Okay.
855-5068.
Okay. I'm just always thinking about little things that kids like to touch.
Yeah.
We've got a contact list, and I'll republish that with some numbers to call for miscellaneous concerns like this that may come up during the month.
Awesome. That would be great. And then since I have the floor for a minute, Joan, we were super excited to have the Medfield Rec Center open this month. And I can't use it now, but my husband's really excited to go. And I know my next door neighbor said that she was really excited to be able to go. So we're excited that it's open. So I appreciate your efforts on that. And that's all I got.
Jessica, also on the call, is working on that. She's overseeing that facility, and we noticed you hadn't been there, but now we know why. I'm sorry. Hopefully you'll be able to join us soon.
That's my hope. I like I said, I saw it. I actually thought of you. I was like, Joan's going to wonder why I haven't gone over there now that it's open. Yeah. I've got my foot propped up right now.
All right. Well, I hope you load up on calcium and that foot heals quick, but you know what? It was great that you got your family involved because they gave you the best report ever.
Yeah, they were. It's nice to have kids because they find all the little things that.
Yeah, for sure. That was great. Thank you. All right, so now we're transitioning over to the right-hand column of our amenities, and that brings us to the gun ranges with Gary's report. Although he's got a boat picture in the background. I like your background, Gary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's one of our pontoon boats from the marina. Drone taken, thanks to the marketing department.
Nice.
All right. Well, I went out to the gun ranges this last Saturday. I try to always get out right before the meeting. And pistol range, The rifle side was completely full. There was a couple folks in the pistol range that were just coming out. Royce is very happy that they have put up that plexiglass so that it's only like a 6-inch place to be able to conduct business. So in the wintertime, that's going to be great. And in the summertime, keeping it cool is good as well. And it looks like we're getting pretty close to that landscaping stuff being done there, where they're going to put a couple of picnic benches in. And he told me a barbecue maybe. So for the folks that go out there and have an event or something, be able to use that. But it's done a real nice job. They've backhoed out some dirt and then they put in, looks like some timbers. And then I asked, maybe you can tell me, John, are they going to cover that at all?
The plan right now is to keep it uncovered and open. Suspect 90% of the time it'll kind of be used as just a waiting area for whenever we're at capacity. But then there are other times when it'll be used during an event.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but he was happy with the whole situation. So then I went over and saw Carol at the trap and skeet ranges, and they're looking great. The landscaping's taking shape as well. And there was quite a few folks out there once again on Saturday. So he also had an event that came in on Sunday. I don't know if you went up there, John, but it was, he said it was supposed to be a pretty big event. So it looks like we're doing pretty well, with all the 2020 things that went through. Both ranges seem to be quite active and have been doing well. So I'll keep asking those questions because I see a couple of smiling faces, and of course Carol wouldn't mind a little help on event days. Other than that, everything's fine.
Okay. What any progress on that the range device that the gentleman talked about, the volunteer talked about a couple meetings ago, the target retrieval system?
Hey, this is Tia. John is still wanting to work on it, but as I think most of you know, as soon as it becomes August, September, and October, our entire life focuses on Halloween. So he's just a little behind. I have him building a lot of things for me right now.
Okay, gotcha.
I understand.
All right. Well, thank you for that anyway. Appreciate it. So we have another double amenity to report on here. Val has this responsibility for the RV park and Blowing Springs Park.
We're down there today, and the business at the RV park is really good, they said, the weekends especially. And they've allowed some tent camping now in restricted areas. They've planted new grass along the new Razorback Trail they are putting through Blowing Springs, so they're wanting to keep people off of that area. They also have opened up the bathrooms there. The bathrooms were nice and clean, and everything looked mowed and taken care of.
Okay, real good. Joe, could I ask a question about that Blowing Springs area in regards to the Razorback Trail extension? It's making really good progress, and I see how it starts right kind of in the middle of Blowing Springs. What is the plan for the connection from the current existing starting point back to the parking area way at the west?
Yeah, so that was purposely done when this project was planned. The builders and the construction people worked with me. I needed to protect the park, obviously, during our peak months. So the plan was always for them to start kind of right there at the edge of the RV park and work their way out of the back of the park. Unfortunately, like most projects, the project got delayed, and so they were in the park a little longer than I would have liked. The plan is and was to come back in November to pick up from the front of the park once our campground slows down. And so it will literally connect to the trailhead parking at the front of the park where the current Razorback spur dumps you out to that parking lot. It will run basically alongside the road not through the campground, but alongside the road. They are having some challenges with the soil and the infrastructure on what we call the south side of the road. And there's going to be a big retaining wall built there, but the geoengineers have found that soil is not stable enough. So it may be that temporarily part of it will run alongside the road and while we figure that out. But basically, it'll meander fairly close to that road and then pick back up where you currently see it, quote unquote, start right now. And that work is scheduled to start in November and work through the winter.
Okay, appreciate that update. A lot of folks are excited about that. I've actually seen folks walking on cemented sections already, so I have a feeling it's going to be a great addition. All right, so that moves us to the Tanyard Creek and Lake Avalon parks, and Janet has these. You're on mute, though.
Now,
there we go.
I'd like to say that Tanyard Creek really looked lovely. There were not as many people, it wasn't packed, but there were people out enjoying the trails. And I really, I talked to a couple of them and they just said, you know, it's so easy and nice to bring family out there. The kids love climbing around and they just feel like it's good to learn about nature there. I saw no problems, no debris. Everything was nice and clean. I looked at the bathrooms there. They were dry, both sides. I would have to say that someone had been pitching their towels and missed the garbage, but otherwise it was really in good shape. Pavilion and everything were clean, no trash. Now, to Lake Avalon, the park, there were probably, I would say 10 people out, several families and youth that were in the park itself at various places under trees, you know, sitting up on the hill, looking out over the beach. And there was one guy at the dock that was throwing his magnet in to test it out. And it was kind of odd because there were a family, 2 adults and a teenage boy and a lab that were, the lab and the boy were swimming in the water there around by where the kayaks are. And they said they like going there because there's no debris in the water, you know, like there are some places. Okay. I assumed it's okay that they be there. I didn't have a park ranger around to check it out. So I went up to the dam area, and again, it was being utilized, swimmers off the dock area and people just kind of sitting back and enjoying it. The porta potty that's in the parking area was okay. I mean, it really, I think, needed to be cleaned up a bit on the inside, but all around on the outside was a lot of trash, aluminum cans, wrappers. It was quite a bit of it all around that. Otherwise, everything looks smashing. That's it.
Great. So perhaps that area needs a little cleanup from the holiday weekend. Sounds like it was used a lot. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. So the last 2 amenities are mine, and I'll cover the London Park first because that was most straightforward. A lot more activity at the Medfield complex during this month. So over at London Park, everything was looking really good. The restrooms were clean. The doors are working good. They're orderly. Looks nice. The grounds, grass cut clean, no branches, no debris anywhere. It was a really good looking park. The fish cleaning station, spotless, good shape. There were only a couple of cars there with trailers, so there were folks out on the lake, but none were present using the park when I visited at this time. But that place is in great shape. Moving over to the east now, we'll look at the Medfield complex. And I went there this past Saturday morning, and it was really busy, especially the playground. So what was happening at the playground, it looked like lots of kids, but they were staying in their family units. So the parents were out there and the kids were out there enjoying the playground. And if they were siblings and stuff, no problems because they were playing together. But like I mentioned, the family groups looked like they were maintaining a safe distance from each other. Talked to a couple of folks there. They had just finished mountain biking in the area and their children were playing in the playground. They said they really love the place. They frequent the park often. They spoke highly of Bella Vista, and they were just visiting from Missouri. So they were just down and enjoying some of the amenities in Bella Vista there. And pickleball courts there were clean and orderly, though no one was playing in them on a cool overcast Saturday morning. So that was surprising, but they're in good shape. So overall, the park is 4.5 stars. I have to leave a half star because, you just have to, but it's looking good.
Thanks for fixing that light there at the pickleball court also.
Joan, think on that? All right then, so
the math department that got out there very quickly after we reported it. So thanks to the maintenance and construction group, but appreciate you guys reporting it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Janet and I were talking a little bit during the month, and she has so much work to do to get our notes collected and compiled into minutes and everything. So we thought of a way that might help her be a little bit more efficient with this. And that would be if we would send our amenity reports to Janet ahead of this meeting so she could kind of get ahead of things and have a good base point for capturing and updating the minutes. And I showed her a simplified report format to see if it would work for her. And it seems like it will. It's plain and unformatted, but that's nice for cutting and pasting. So what I'd like to do is send that out to the team. And then when we're putting together our October reports there, we could shoot it out to Janet before we get together at our meeting. And hopefully it'll make things a little bit easier for all the notes taking. All right. So with that, we'll move on to the POA staff reports. And we could start off with Mr. Tom Judson.
Did you want to do the welcome meet and greet report from Debbie or come back to that?
Well, thank you, Tom. My eyes have bounced to the wrong place on the agenda. Thank you for taking me back. So,
I always feel that I should come before Debbie. That's for sure.
Oh, thanks.
So circling back, I stand corrected here. Debbie, how about that welcome meet and greet? Tell us about what's going on there.
We had one on August 12th. It was our first Zoom meeting. I had over 60 people registered. However, I think we had maybe 30 people, and I say people, 30 emails online. I think it was very successful. I'm sure Tom will give you your opinion. Kim basically managed the meeting, good questions from everybody. And I have to say that I would suggest that we do, hopefully we'll get back to in-person meetings, but I would like to do at least 2 Zoom meetings a year. I think that I would recommend that the POA continue those because it was very successful and it allowed people with young kids to go ahead and join us, which sometimes they would not have necessarily wanted to join us at the country club. So anyway, it was a very good meeting. We had over, I think there were 17 states represented, and most of them were all over, every Utah, Boston. It was kind of crazy, but it was not the typical Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, that type, Iowa. So it was from all over the United States. Anyway, and I would like to have the next one. I would do another Zoom meeting, and we'll work it out with Tom and maybe early December. I think that would be a good time to do one. So that's it.
All right, it's becoming a social media hit. Okay, so I'm back on track with the right schedule here. So we've got a line item here for Joan to talk a little bit about the 2021 Recreation capital budgets, and I'll give you the floor, Joan.
Awesome. Well, I reached out to Chris, and he asked me actually about when would be the appropriate time to talk about budgets. And guess what? It's the time. Generally, we do it in the fall, and some of you who've been involved in this in the past, well, I made a suggestion to Chris that he was open to. Which in the past, you've had some time to sort of brainstorm and all of that. I'm going to let Tom make a few comments whenever he wants, but I thought to set the stage to let you know that, every year, for those of you that are new to the committee, every year we get input from the Rec JAC and from the other JACs about what they're hearing from members, what do they think is important relative to the capital budgets. And in our world, the capital budgets are those big things. They often fall in the repair area, but sometimes it's a new thing. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But as Tom is often the voice of reason, I portray that as well. There is always a challenge with more opportunities than funds. So what I had suggested to Chris was there are a number of things that really are pretty important that I could shine a light on, get your feedback and reaction to. And in addition, there's a few things that would be nice to have, and maybe there's some things that you all have been thinking about. But I thought if I put together a short list, give you something to understand kind of where the rec division has some challenges and some needs, it would give you a feel of where I'm proposing we go, but also give you the opportunity to weigh in and say, oh, but I'm hearing this, or yes, we've talked about that at other rec committee meetings. Two things that we've talked about often, pickleball and the miniature golf. So you'll hear me address that. But I'm gonna pause for a minute and see if Tom wants to add anything before I jump into my list.
I was just, Joan, you touched on it, is this is the time of year we get a lot of requests, and many of these requests are absolutely needed, but the funds are limited, and we're still feeling the impact of having put out the fire last year. So I just want to make sure that we have realistic expectations for this year. We're going to do as much as we can, but it's funds are always tight.
Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen, and we'll see if this works or not. So if not, I'll talk you through it, because already it looks like it doesn't want to do it. Well, let's see here. No, I don't think it's going to do it. So I will talk you through this. If you want to jot down notes, you can. Tammy, maybe, if you don't mind, I'll email that to you real quick to see if you can get it up faster than I can.
I'll wait for it.
Okay. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the process that I like to use. So many of you have been involved in capital budgets in your working world, so you may have done something similar to this before. But what I use is a kind of 3-channel approach, and that is repair, growth, And sorry, let me hang on. I've got too many things open. Hang on a second.
I know the feeling on that. Even with 2 screens, it gets full.
Develop, grow, and repair. And repair is pretty obvious. The pickleball courts is going to be a great example of that. And then for grow, it's something that maybe we already have in place that we need to expand upon. And then develop is usually something brand new, maybe something we haven't done before, but we're hearing that our membership would like it, or it's a trend. So I'm going to start with pickleball courts. And I know, Jackie, you might have some questions about that. We can talk about that now or when we get to staff reports, whatever you like. But if you have seen the recent board meetings, the POA board meetings, we were able to take to the board building 4 new pickleball courts in the last month. The reason we were able to do that is because we peeled this off of our capital list for 2020. But we always told the pickleball contingency, which continues to be growing and very involved, that we would bring it back maybe mid-year after we had a chance to see how we were doing financially. And we're doing pretty good this year. So with all due respect to the board, they approved the building of 4 more pickleball courts. And we went out to a survey because as we started to get that word out, the pickleball contingency started to sort of give feedback about, well, should we go to Medfield, which was our original plan because we had this space dedicated. We took a survey and 2/3 of the people asked that we build at Branchwood. So that is the plan. And Tia Bidwell, who's on this call, had made a recommendation or a suggestion that we might look at spreading that work out over the course of 2 capital years. And so that's what we're going to do. 61,000 was approved. And about half of that roughly will probably be spent this year before the end of the year as we start to put the base down and start to put the surface down. And then we'll come back in the spring and do the overlay, which actually makes them look like courts, makes them playable, and tennis, and not tennis, and we'll do the fencing. So right off the bat, we've got about $28,000 that's already been allocated and is dedicated for the 2021 recreation budget. One of the other things that I wanted to bring your attention to was the Kingsdale pool. You may have heard me talk about this in the past, but long story short, about 2 years ago, we redid all of Medfield pool decking and resurfaced the pool. Both of the pools, Kingsdale and Medfield, are very, very old. Kingsdale is 40-ish years old. And concrete only lasts so long. So the net is we have a big need under repair to replace all the decking around the Kingsdale activity pool and the center section, not where people picnic. That area actually was fairly new concrete and done a number of years ago, isn't in good shape. But the activity pool is in disrepair. It is becoming a safety hazard, whether it's tripping or you can stub your toe, get a cut, etc. And even as important as that is, we're at the point now where we were at Medfield, where the Arkansas Health Department had mentioned that we may not be able to reopen if we don't do significant repairs. So that's where we're at. The Arkansas Health Department has full rights to not open us. And they did mention it this year again upon an inspection that we were looking pretty rough. So that's a pretty big need. All in, that's, again, I'm giving you estimates now, but all in, that's about $125,000 project. Concrete, as you know, is very expensive. In that 125, we would also resurface the activity pool, which has to be done every 3 to 5 years anyway. And we would redo the coping, which is that kind of bulky tiling around the edge of the pool. That's pretty darn expensive to do, unfortunately. And so all in, that's $125,000. I'm not going in any particular order. I'm just kind of going through the things. One of the other things that this committee has talked about many times, in fact, it came up again by Scott today, is mini golf. And mini golf, for those of you that aren't aware of costs for such an amenity, it's not a cheap amenity. We've talked many years, and the carpet, the AstroTurf is one thing. To replace an 18-hole golf course, all new carpet is in the $8,000 to $10,000 range. That's with the labor and everything. But to really make it a nice course, because basically we have two courses that are pretty run down. Medfield, in my opinion, is the worst. And Kingsdale, the infrastructure, meaning the framework around it, is in better shape. But not too exciting, the attractions. Pretty boring. It's been there a long time. Needs some work. Each attraction is about $5,000. That's whether you're going through a windmill or something, really fun. So all in, if we were to redo a 9 to 18 hole mini golf, I do not believe we need 2 miniature golfs. Yes, if money was, plentiful, it would be great to have one on the east side in the central part, but we're really thinking that it should be in the central part. And I said earlier that the infrastructure is better, so it'd be easier to make some improvements there. So that's approximately $50,000. So again, not a small ticket. Moving on to the marina. The marina has had great success this year. Trey Anson manages the marina for me. We built it pretty much from the ground up last year with our maintenance team helping us redo the building. We took over what had been leased out for many, many years, and now the POA is running it themselves. Very successful. Like many of our amenities, COVID affected the marina this summer in a good way. Last year we had a banner summer. We were sold out of boats many, many days. This summer, more of the same. But because people could be outside and enjoying activities, the marina really did well. Last year, we pulled out a capital budget, a boat. We had requested a good condition used boat that would fill the needs for people who want to fish and or tube that is smaller than the pontoon boats we rent. So we currently have a bass boat. It only seats 2 people, and it's rarely used because generally it's groups of 4, maybe 6 that want to go out. Not necessarily 12 that go out on the pontoon boat or 10, but we could really use a nice condition. We would purchase used boat. We're budgeting approximately 20 grand for that. And then we would get rid of our bass boat to help offset some of that cost. And it might turn into a Ranger boat or something like that. But that's one of the things that's on our list. And again, that would be grow. That would be another way to serve our members in something that's already very popular. The marina is very popular, but we'd be growing that area. I'm going to move into Blowing Springs. As many of you may know, it is our only profitable amenity across the whole POA. We're quite proud of that. We've done a lot of work in that park in the last few years, and we get glowing reviews, both from our members, but also from our non-members. And an important thing to note is that income helps offset some of the other amenities that our members enjoy, notably the trails. All the income from that park helps offset the maintenance budget of the trails. And I can guarantee you that with COVID, the trails, and Chris can testify to that, and many of you on this call, because I know many of you are active users of the trails, but they have exploded. And so that park has really been something that we're quite proud of, and we want to keep it going. And specifically the tiny cabin. We put that in, we bought one tiny cabin. I designed it, had it built custom. We put it in the fall of 2018 as a test. We always planned that we would have more cabins. The test was very successful. It was basically sold out in the first 2 months. In 2019, we did very well. We generated close to $10,000 of new revenue, very popular. And this year I'm up 30%. So I'm on track to finish the year at least 30% ahead of 2019. And then again, we're barely to its 2-year mark. So we've generated well over $20,000 worth of new income. What I constantly get is, I wanted to bring my family. Do you have another cabin? No, I'm sorry. We just have one. We're looking into more. A lot of people want to come in groups. When it's a holiday, the members are looking for places to put up their families, and we can only accommodate 2 people in the tiny cabin. It's a double bed, 2 people cabin. As I mentioned early on, from the time we put the first cabin on, it was always part of our 5-year plan that we would add more cabins, but we wanted to do a pilot, and it's proven very successful. We are a 5-star super host on the Airbnb. So again, that's a pretty important designation. We work hard to keep that cabin in good shape. So I am proposing that we build 3 more cabins and a utility cabin. And that would be the laundry room and the storage area, because you can imagine with 1 cabin, we currently transport all our cleaning supplies and do laundry up at the front of the park. I actually do laundry at my house quite a bit, just to keep it flowing. But if we're going to add 3 more cabins, we would build a tiny cabin village, if you will. There would be a community fire pit, a place for people could congregate together. And all in with the infrastructure, 4 cabins, including one that's kind of bare bones for laundry and whatnot. That adds about $79,000. And that would be in the grow category. Again, grow meaning we've already got something that's working very well in place, expand on it to serve both members, and in this case, guests. And then, go ahead.
Joan?
Yes.
Debbie, can I ask a question on the utility, on the cabins? Do the people who rent the cabins, do they have to be associated with a member here in Bella Vista?
They do not. If you recall, Debbie, the Blowing Springs Park is open to the public.
Okay.
The campground and the park, that includes the trails, the arboretum, and all of that. So no,
Okay.
they do not.
Okay.
One other question on the expansion, would they all be 2? Would they sleep 2 as well?
That's a great question, Jackie. The way I have it planned is that we would have one that is more family style. So there would be, you could have 2, a bunk bed and a big bed in the back. And then we would have one that would be like a bunkhouse. So yeah, we'd be able to accommodate different groups, because that's a great point, Jackie. Sometimes it's a family of 4, and I've allowed them with a small child or 2 to stay in the cabin, but there's not a lot of floor space in there. When we call them a tiny cabin, that's really how they're designed. So there are different designs that we can do to accommodate different families. So thank you for bringing that up, Jackie.
Joan, are you looking at going back with the same company out of Missouri?
Yes. They've really designed it well. They're out in Neosha, as Denise mentioned. And he mentioned to me a couple of months ago when I was getting my quote again, saying, hey, are my quotes from last year going to hold, because we had to pull it from the budget? He said, yes, pretty close. He said, but he's even talking about needing to expand, because they are just exploding, because people have seen our cabin and want to buy it. And they're in Eureka Springs. There's a couple in Eureka Springs, but they're all over the country, and they're very economical. I mean, without going into too much, and I promise my list is almost done, so I'll stop talking. But several years ago, I proposed to the board that we needed park units. Most campgrounds like ours have park units, and they cabins, they may be small apartments or whatnot, but it's a great way to service a broader group. And I originally started doing my research. I looked at everything from yurts that were fully developed to, long story short, these tiny cabins are so much cheaper than anything else that we could build, and have made so many people happy. They just fit in with the park atmosphere. So in a very small footprint, you can do very well. Any other questions about that?
I have a question about the cabins.
Sure.
Where the tiny cabin is, we looked at staying, but we've got 2 little ones, so we haven't done it. But it's right there on the edge of that really pretty like picnic area where you can see the rocks and stuff. Would you be putting the rest of them right there? Would it block that view?
No. The tiny cabin that Scotty's currently referring to is sitting on the edge of what I would call the campground, the RV camp spaces, and it sits adjacent to the creek. And there are 2 tent camping spots right there, and it is a very pretty view. We purposely did that, Scotty, to save money when we had just one, because we already had the infrastructure of the plumbing and the sewer right there at the edge of the campground. So I placed it, you know, sort of off the campground, but really close enough that I could draw from the utilities. Our plan with this expansion would be across the road up by, if you know where our other tent sites are on what we would again call the south side of the road, there is some grassy space there. It would be fairly close to the greenway, but there's some grassy space there and we have water within reach. We'd still have to do infrastructure, sewer and all that. But yeah, that's a great question.
So those are 4 projects so far.
Okay, and I promise I've only got 2 more on the list. Again, tiny cabins that would fall in the grow category. Outdoor fitness playground. So this would be for adults. If you're familiar with the pump track, the bike skills track, just as you're coming into Blowing Springs, that concrete mogul park, adjacent to that, there's a really, really basic fitness area. Green metal stations for working out outdoors. 3 years ago, I proposed this for at Branchwood at that time to go along the trail, but this would be a higher tech version of that. Long story short, that got cut from the budget. As we explained earlier, every year things get cut from the budget. But recently, some of you may have seen on social media that there was a discussion going around and they were calling it an adult playground, but it really is an adult outdoor fitness center station, if you will. And they're much lower tech than our indoor fitness equipment. That's how they survive in the outdoor elements. They're very popular in areas that have more mild seasons like us. And I think it's an excellent idea. You know, again, in the grand scheme of things, we only have so much money to go around, but I wanted to put that on the list because it is something that our membership had talked about. Certainly with COVID going into the foreseeable future, it would probably get a lot of use. You may have seen other stations like this along the Razorback. These are probably in the $3,500-ish range per piece, maybe up to $5,000 for the better pieces. So they're not cheap, but no fitness equipment is. So again, if you were to do a 6 to 8 station area, you'd probably be around 30,000. And that would be one that I would call developed. We don't have anything like that currently within the POA. So I would put that under the developed area. And then lastly, moving on, Kingsdale tennis courts. Some of you have been on this committee for a long time, so you've heard this discussed before. But in 2018, we completely redid courts 5 and 6 at the Kingsdale tennis court complex. And at that time, it was in our 5-year plan that every 2 years we would redo 2 of the courts. Those courts have outlived themselves tremendously. Average court life for concrete tennis courts is 20, 25 years. Ours are 40 plus. So 3 years ago, or in 18, we completely redid courts 5 and 6. And ever since then, we've had to keep pulling the $150,000 to $175,000 out of the budget because we've just been financially strapped. We are piecemealing the other 6 courts. We did put a nice surface on courts 7 and 8. That's probably the court besides the new courts 5 and 6 that are in the best shape. But courts 1 through 4 are short for this world. They are going to be at the point where, just like the Branchwood tennis courts, they are not going to be able to be repaired. So sadly, that's a repair cost, and it's not cheap, $175,000. So again, it's on the list. And just to give you a history, it's been pulled the last couple of years due to financial constraints. So I'm going to stop there. See if there's questions.
Is the 175 is for all four?
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Post-tension, to do it right, post-tension courts that are going to last you 25 years, 175 all in. Now, it might be a little lower. With COVID, you never know. Some costs have gone down and some have gone up. But that's completely taking out all the courts, grinding them up. You're putting in, a really big footprint of 2 tennis courts and all the rebar, all the construction. And there are very few contractors that, can do this. This is not just something that just the average concrete contractor will do. This is a specialty group. The last time we did it, we pulled a group up from Houston that, thrives on this. So yeah, it's expensive.
That was per court or the project?
For 2 courts. Okay. Generally, when you do a tennis court, because they're side by side, for instance, at the tennis complex, we have courts 1 and 2, they sit side by side. Courts 3 and 4, courts 5 and 6, courts 7 and 8.
Got it. Okay. So I know we could probably ask a lot of questions about these projects. There's 6 projects that you've put on a short list here. So are these capable of being funded at this point? And what is the outcome expected from the committee here? Should we discuss now? Do we vote on the projects? Do we confirm the projects? What would the desired outcome be?
So great questions. I wish I had the power to say, could all these be funded? The realist in me, and Tom will probably jump in, is it's highly unlikely that all of these could be funded. It's highly unlikely.
Okay.
But I would love feedback. I would love if you guys want to prioritize. Now, just keep in mind, as you received in your training, your priority might not meet my priority or the board's priority. They ultimately approve all capital budgets. As a subject matter expert, it's my job to present all the background that I gave you and more information that the board may seek so that you guys can make informed decisions. But certainly we want your feedback. Certainly a priority would be great. And there might be something out there that I didn't touch on. I tried to be very realistic. These are all things that we have already been working towards from a membership, or things that our membership has reached out to us for, or things, Kingsdale Pool, most people wouldn't know the details of that. I needed to bring that forth. But, by the average eye, if you went to Kingsdale Activity Pool and looked around the deck, you'd go, yeah, that does look kind of, yeah. But so the outcome would be probably prioritize, discuss, and then also just to give you an opportunity, there might be something that you feel is very important, at least to raise it up the flag. And you certainly should feel free to do that. But as Tom and I set the stage, want to be realistic, because this is just the rec list. We have quite a few other divisions across the POA. And so we have to be mindful.
Joan, this is Debbie.
Yeah.
Having been on the committee for quite some time, I guess I have 2 questions, and I'm sure Chris might back me up on this, but we had in the past talked about bocce ball, and we had talked about a practice archery range. And I guess I look at those 2, and all of a sudden we're talking about an outdoor adult facility, which we had never discussed, at $30,000. And I guess I have to say that the archery range and the bocce ball have been on our agenda for several years.
Very fair statements. I'll address bocce first, and then I'll mention archery, and then we'll let Rick jump in on archery. Bocce ball, we did talk about it several years ago. We got close to looking at it. I haven't heard boo about it since, Debbie, to be fair. I mean,
Okay.
a couple of people, but the reality is it's not as popular as, say, pickleball, you know, it's
No,
just
oh, absolutely.
not as popular. So I didn't put that on the list for that reason, because it will still probably be 20,000-ish, I'm gonna guess. And the reason I put the outdoor fitness playground on there was because there was quite a big stream on social media about people that thought it was a great idea. And so that's the only reason why I put it back on, because it was something that we had looked into before, and because of some member feedback. Archery, I have my opinion and Rick probably has his opinion. When we went down this road before the 2020 plan passed, I think archery is a obviously great sport and recreational endeavor. However, this is my opinion only. I'm just going to speak from my place, and then Rick can jump in. Once 2020 plan changed, a lot of the feedback that we got from our membership also changed. For the things that are open to the public, that's one thing, but for the things that are not open to the public, and you know, the gun range is one example where we're having to get special approval for certain events. Archery, the bulk of the people that, at least a lot of the people, I shouldn't say the bulk, a lot of the people that want to utilize it are not members. And so that kind of is a disconnect for me, based on what our membership has said. Not that archery is not important, not that we shouldn't do it. And again, if money was, you know, plentiful, then it might be a different thing. But there's going to have to be a whole nother look at it again from all these groups that want to use it that wouldn't be considered members. I'm going to pause there and let Rick take over, because that's really been his ball.
So as far as archery goes, the big roadblock that we had, other than funding it, was a place to put it. And it seemed like every potential location came with its problems, or just outright we couldn't do it there. And so at the time we left the issue, the McNally property was about the only thing left for us to pursue. And so,
and Rick, can you explain where that location is to the rest of the group?
That's what road is that? It's McNally Road, but
County 40.
It's Route 40.
40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Headed east on the south side of town.
Yeah, I those are a couple big roadblocks to overcome there. You know, the land and
right. And this location would have likely been the most expensive to develop, just because we had to create some separation between the existing trail that's close by. We had to comply with some city requirements for parking facilities, which we may or may not have been able to get a variance on. I mean, it's maybe still worth pursuing, but it's got its drawbacks as well.
But Rick, also, I think, to be fair, this is Debbie. I think, to be fair, you're 100% correct about the fact that the population in Bella Vista have said they want to keep the amenities to the members, and the archery practice range would need to be open. It really would, to exist and to go forth to the public.
John, did you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, you were talking about, it seems like that land is zoned as residential as well, so we would need to rezone it as well, if I'm remembering correct.
It's also in a floodplain.
And there's that.
Great.
Yeah.
That's
we went down the road of, we looked at what must have been 6 or 8 different properties, and they all had a fatal flaw.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe this stays on the back burner for a while yet. circumstances could change. We know there was interest in it, and we're definitely not going to be able to solve that here. So we just have to put this one on the back burner for now.
So maybe in the interest of time, you give the committee time to think about some of this, and they can either forward you feedback or they can forward it directly to me. I'm happy for them to, I can give my email, but I will let you know that by the end of this month, I have to have a pretty firm draft of what I'll be presenting to Tom and the board.
Okay. So what we'll have to do then as a team is get together on the side by various methods, maybe another conference call, sharing emails, but we'll go ahead and get some priorities on a list vetted out that you gave us, and we'll reply to you by the end of the month.
Can I ask a quick question? I don't know if we even do this because I'm new here, but I think we have our person that's in charge of marketing. She's on here, right?
Judy, yeah.
Judy, thank you. I was trying to remember her name. She doesn't come up on my sidebar. So hi, Judy. I am not real familiar with pickleball. I'm picturing in my mind a tennis court. And where I used to live a long time ago down in Florida, people were always on these courts that I always thought were tennis courts, and I found out they were pickleball. And they actually had advertisements up, like big signs that companies could pay money to have their sign up at the courts and people would see it. And obviously it wouldn't cover the price of a court. But do we have any opportunities to be able to contribute to the funding of some of these projects through some marketing with local businesses?
I can't answer that question. I'd have to talk, maybe Tom, because I know that we do have some restrictions. So we've looked into some things at Blowing Springs, but I don't know at the pickleball courts if Tom may jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be cautious about having too much advertising in the area. But it's definitely that now Judy works in marketing. She's not the head of marketing. She's a valuable member of marketing. But I can definitely have a conversation with Kim about that idea. But I'd be very concerned about, having too much advertising all over the place.
Sure. I'm thinking of like, for example, I get the newsletter in the mail and that has some business cards and advertisement. And we get the Bella Vista magazine that I love, and that has advertisements. And I thought, well, the POA is using advertisements to pay for some of those things. Yeah. Would it be possible to use? And obviously, we don't want it to look like a NASCAR. But would there be a way for, if we're looking at the cabins, like the cabins sound like an awesome idea, and they bring in some money to help fund some of these things, like the trail maintenance. Are there other opportunities where we could utilize advertising space to be able to help fund some of these awesome amenities, especially if it helps be able to fund more amenities or, things that are going to improve it overall? I'm trying to think outside of the box. When you have a set amount of money, what are the other opportunities? And are we maxing out as much as you guys want to marketing opportunities that won't be obnoxious? But I don't think it's obnoxious when I get them in the mail or.
No, and so that's one of Judy's main jobs, is to actually sell the advertising so that we can make connections inside a reality. And that's a full-time job just doing that. So if you add additional things on top of that, I think you start getting into a rule of diminishing returns. So I just want to be realistic about it. I like the creativity, but I want to be realistic.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that part because when I first started, we did look into doing some advertising on some of the message boards at the golf courses. And there used to be a time when we advertised on the scorecards and the golf carts and things of that nature. And unfortunately, it's just, there was not enough return on investment, not only for us, but even more so our advertisers. It's hard to price it at a level that it's really enough income to make it cover our costs and then make it doable for the company or the person that's advertising. And that's the challenge, is that it's a very delicate balance between those two.
It has also been brought up in the pickleball community to start charging for pickleball to help pay for some of the pickleball amenities. I don't know if that's an option.
Well, it's always an option, and taking in income is never a bad thing, but it is an operational thing that we'd have to look at. And to be honest with you, Val, I think some of the pickleball players are very open to that, but there's a lot that don't want to pay. Why they don't want to play at Kingsdale. They're used to doing, drop-in, but nothing's off the table. The biggest challenge with that, and I'll be quick on this, is that how do you enforce it? Because I don't have staff at all those locations. So that's the problem.
I have one more question on the pickleball. The $61,000 that's approved by the board, is that both phases and you've approved into the next budget, or is that this budget and you need 28 more approved next budget?
Oh, good question. It's for both years. The 28, I was just showing what portion of that 61 is going to actually hit the 2021 budget. But when we got it approved, I said, okay, if we're going to stretch it out over 2 years, you can't come back after I build, half of the courts and say, oh, we don't have the money. So you have to commit to the 2-year project, and they did.
Okay, so that's coming out of next year's budget, the other part of it.
The 28 is, yep.
Okay.
They approved 61 for 20 and 21 all in.
Okay, team. So we've got a little bit of work to do here on prioritizing this list. We'll get on it right away so we could volley questions back and forth with our POA leaders if we need to ask questions, and we'll get her done. Sound good for everybody?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the support. Okay, so I guess we got a little bit of time left here. If the staff reports could go ahead and give a brief update if they want. Tom, now I guess it's your turn officially.
All right. So I'll go over this as quickly as possible. First of all, echoing what Debbie covered, I think the meet and greet was a success. It's not as good as being, in person. You'd love to be in person, but it's the next best thing. So I think we should continue to do those on a regular basis. So an update, activity card sales this year compared to prior year, we were up 40% over prior year. Not 100% apples to apples comparison, because they were the photo ID card previously and you had additional costs on top of that. So not a perfect comparison, but definitely shows you that we're doing very well. Guest passes, very busy. We're up 90% over prior year. Huge increase. And so member services is extremely busy. Boat registrations are up 18%. Golf is up 15,300 rounds over prior year.
Wow.
We haven't said golf was up in probably a decade. So that's really, really well. And I would attribute a lot of these to the 2020 plan, not just COVID. I mean, COVID has an impact, but I would venture to guess that golf would probably even be higher if it wasn't because of the COVID restrictions, because we can only have one person per cart. And then restaurants are doing very well. We're at 90% of normal. Back in March when we closed, we were at 0. And then when we opened in April, we were at 40% for a long time. And now we're at 90%. And last weekend, we actually hit 100% for the weekend. So we're very pleased. We continue to follow COVID. And I think a lot of people are coming out because we are following those guidelines. And then the last thing is the disc golf course. We're going to be making a change up at Branchwood, where we're going to have people check in before they go out and play disc golf. There won't be a fee, but we'll ask people to check in and we'll ring them up. So there's no charge, and it will be limited to our members and guests. But this will give us some great data so that we can know that, hey, X number of people use the facility and so forth. So Joan's going to be working on a sign that we'll have at the first tee, and so that'll be a change that will be made fairly soon. And
Tom, this is Debbie. I have a question concerning that. Two things. Number one, on the disc golf, Branchwood is closed on Saturday afternoons and all day Sunday. How can people check in? And that's probably the highest use time for the disc golf.
Well, when we're closed, they will obviously, we won't be able to check in, but on other days they will. It won't, you know, as with a lot of things, the data won't be 100% perfect, but it'll at least give us some trends, and we can see over time if the disc golf course is being, you know, we have an increase in usage or a decrease, and that's really helps us with funding decisions. You know, let's say 5 years from now, if we see a constant upward trend of disc golf usage, maybe we want to add a second disc golf course somewhere else. Or if we see a decrease, maybe we want to make a change there. So having that data will be good. It won't be perfect, but it'll be a little bit better than what we currently have, which is absolutely nothing.
We may also, it's going to take me a little bit to get this going, Debbie, but what we might do is some informal where they can tally how many people are out there. We did that very, very early on at Blowing Springs when the trails first opened. And it was very manual. I mean, it was as simple as put a hash mark if you had 3 people out here playing on a Sunday. But we're going to look at that too to see what we can. But it will have a little bit of flaws in it, as Tom mentioned, because we can't 100% capture everybody, but we'll have some data, which is better than no data.
It would sure be nice if it could be done electronically.
Well, that's something we can definitely look into, but we don't want to spend a huge amount of money to track it.
No. I understand.
So, but we're gonna crawl, walk, run on this. Let's just see how we do to begin with, and then we'll go from there.
The other question, Tom, is on the guest passes are up 90%. Is there a cost or tell me on the guest passes, we're not making money on those. That's just strictly our members saying these are guests. And so there's no income for the POA on that.
No, we don't charge for guest passes, but I think it comes, I think it's partially because of COVID, but I think it's partly due to the 2020 plan and people being aware of the importance of having guest passes. And also, Rick's going to talk about, briefly, but he'll talk about how we've really stepped up the Lakes and Parks Rangers. We've gone from, Rick, keep me honest, I think last year we had about 1,300 or 1,400 people removed from our lakes, and that's jumped up to 3,600 this year. So we've removed 2,200 more people this year than last year.
Yeah, right on the mark. And
right on the mark.
That is all of 2019 versus this partial year. So it's actually better than that.
So I think what's happening is that word is getting out that we're aggressively removing people. And so our membership understands their guests need to have cards.
Okay.
Because actually, let me add one more thing. What Rick is also noticing is in the last several weeks, we're tapering down. And I think that's not only because we're coming out of the season, but I think the education of people is starting to kick in, and people are recognizing, I better get a guest pass so I don't get kicked off.
Okay.
So,
Tom, do you need a guest pass for all the amenities like pickleball, tennis?
if you're a guest, well, tennis you would not, because tennis is open, golf is open, but you would need a guest pass for everything else.
Okay.
If you're not a member.
Right. Like if my kids are here, I'll need to go get a guest pass for them to play pickleball with me.
Correct.
No, not
No,
with you. Not with
yeah.
you.
Okay.
If they want to run down and play one day when you're busy, then they would need to have a guest pass.
Okay.
That's all I had to report.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tom.
I want to just give you a little feedback on the guest passes. That online form and the response time from the member services is excellent. They're on top of it and they do that very quickly. Good turnaround.
Fantastic. Well, and we're working on, so I'm going to give you a quick, we are rolling out our app. So we've been developing an app, and that is it's rolling out on a very limited basis, and we're going to slowly expand it. We're going to give it to the committees fairly soon, within the next couple of weeks, to get the committee's input, and then we'll go global from there, or community-wide from there. But we're very excited, and version probably 3 or 5 from now, you would actually use your phone as your guest pass and use your phone as your amenity card. But that's 2 or 3 or 4 generations from now. We're just getting the first one off the ground, but we're trying to make it even easier. But I appreciate you recognizing the hard work of our member services team.
Okay. We got a little bit of feedback there, just went away. Things look good again. So Rick, what's happening with the lakes and parks?
Yeah, so we're still on schedule for our Lake Rayburn drawdown. Again, that is a start on November the 9th. We hope to have it down by the 4th of December, and then we'll allow it to start refilling on March 1st. Let's see, Tom touched on these numbers. We hired a new grounds maintenance worker. He is also a full-time IT student. So when he finishes his studies, maybe we can hire him in a long-term position. The Lake Rangers, for the month of August, had 2,878 contacts, only 202 removed. And so compared to, for the year, 3,680, we only removed 202. So that's a fairly small fraction of that total. So as Tom mentioned, that does show that our trend is down. And I do think that he is correct and that people are getting the hint on that. Let's see what else. I've got the Rangers for the rest of the year concentrating on wake violations on Lake Ann, Windsor, and Lomond, trying to get that better compliance there. And as we have passed the Labor Day, we're going to be downsizing from our current 8 Lake Rangers down to 4 by November the 1st, like we usually do. We continue to get quite a few trees that we need to remove from lakes and trails that are blocking the trails and and getting into the lakes. We actually had one that I noticed last Friday at the Lake Avalon parking lot at the dam. There was a tree over by the parking area that was in really immediate danger of falling onto the parking lot. We did get that cut today, put on the ground, and our guys will take care of the disposal. Let's see here. The Lake Avalon gate, now that we're past the busy season, will remain open at night so that fishermen can have access to the heated dock and the fishing along there. Usually by this time of the year, we stop seeing the vandalism and that kind of thing that results when we leave the gate open. I believe I reported a little bit on this last time, but we actually had 2 kids fishing derbies, one on the 7th and the 14th. The 7th was kind of a rainy day, so we added a second date. We had a total of 49 participants, and our surplus fish will now be moved to the other lakes. E. coli sampling was completed on all of the lakes this summer and at the beach. And in all instances, we had safe numbers reported. Let's see here. We're going to stock blue and channel catfish this October in all of the lakes. We're preparing for an intensive fish sampling year this fall. We're going to be out in the evening hours with our electrofishing boat, which basically consists of bright lights and a generator. So if there are people concerned about that, we're doing that. In the month of November, we're going to be doing some pretty intensive fish netting to make up, and this is to make up for our spring sampling that was postponed due to COVID. The other thing to report is our fish cleaning station is now functional at Granton Park. So that's been long anticipated and now is functional and ready to go. And we'll be looking for the Fly Tires contribution as soon as I can get all the receipts together. And that's it.
Okay, good report. And then we have a marketing line item here for Judy.
We're not really anything to report. Rick just mentioned the lake drawdown, and we did post on the web page for the lake drawdown a list of general contractors for residents or for members that might want to get some work done. But other than that, we're just marketing.
Good stuff. The newsletter, the magazine looks great this issue as usual. Appreciate marketing's work on that.
Thank you.
And that kind of brings us near the close of our meeting here.
John might have some comments.
Hey, Chris, I was going to add some stuff about the gun range. Rick forgot to pass it over to me.
Okay, it's yours, John.
All right. Like Gary said, it's been super busy out at both gun ranges during the entire month of August. We don't typically see a whole lot of business. It's fairly slow in August. It's hot. People just don't want to come out. That was not the case this August. We more than doubled last August as far as attendance numbers over at Rifle Pistol. And this is a trend that's been building every single month. Normally follows our busy time. We're going to be in for a heck of a fall if this holds out. We're pretty much operating at mostly capacity on the weekends right now. We're just over half capacity due to COVID. We've had to shut down some shooting stations to keep people socially distanced. So I think we're really close to about where we can be and stay safe. One day during August, we did take all of our gun range employees and we did a training day. Everybody got certified or recertified for range safety or range officer safety. All of our new employees are now trained. All of our alternate employees are trained, and the guys that have been around a while, they've recertified. I did announce classes last month. Those are filling up very, very quickly. I've been getting an incredible volume of calls about classes. Several are filling up. We do have some spots still available in October and the last class in September. And I think pretty much most of November is still open. So anybody wants to get in on that, just give myself or membership services a call and I can answer any questions you might have. And then also, like Gary talked about, we did have our second event at the Track and Skeet Range yesterday. This is our second event all year. It was really well attended considering we're kind of in a COVID world right now. It was an ATA tournament like you guys had voted on earlier in the year to allow us to have those. like I said, well attended. I think everybody had a good time. It was a fairly long day though. And that's it.
One more item, a note for the budget. I do anticipate putting in for the replacement of the one side of the dog park that got flooded out. We'll look for some help through the animal shelter on that as well.
Okay.
Rick, I have a question on that. Are you saying that you're going to open the other side?
No, the other side is non-existent.
Yeah, I know.
But it's going to be in the budget to rebuild the other side in a different location.
Okay. So what you're proposing is to have a small dog in a large dog park, but not in the same locations.
Well, not in the exact same
Okay,
location,
okay,
in the same
okay.
area, just move to the other side.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're officially coming close to the end of the meeting here, and we do have one action item as a committee. I'll organize ourselves to get a priority on the budgets and get that back to Joan by the end of the month. And we'll have a period here right now if anybody has any additional comments before we close. Jackie, your box is lighting up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that in the newspaper, there was a great article on Debbie and her volunteerism back a few weeks ago.
you.
Just congratulations. We appreciate everything you've done, and that was a wonderful article. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Great work. Okay. I guess it's about time. Should we have a motion? Can I have a motion to close this meeting?
Motion to close.
Okay, thank you. Second? All right, so we're official. Our meeting is closed for September, and we'll get together very quickly here. I'll organize us for the budget discussions, and next time formally, we'll see each other in October. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
Bye-bye.